1. If you were to ask me to recall my time at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, I would say that I look upon those years as terrifying, tumultuous, exciting, full of wonder, the vast panoply of human magical achievement playing out, over the years like a book or a play script. An education, certainly, and it clear to me that now that, coupled with the bizarre set of circumstances of my early years, my time at Hogwarts has been the pigment of life against which all other events are merely hues to be judged, complimentary, or not. Horrifying too, for rumors, and more than rumors had abounded about the wizard whom my parents had named in hushed tones as you know who, and once, only once, my father had referred to as Tom. For it was this Tom who my parents had known, who had attended the school I now worked at, who had murdered a girl at Hogwarts and had not been stopped. My parents, both civil servants, executive advisors to the Minister for Magic, had been appalled and has appealed to the Ministry for action to be taken against him. But, the start of war, the Second World War, had more than occupied everyone's time, and when it was over, it was far too late. Tom had a hold over all wizardry, promising eternal glory, power and riches for all who killed and maimed at his cause. It had been in that war that my brother was born, fierce, brave, sunny, likable, handsome. He would be like that now, only ... he's not. My parents were devastated when his disease, at the time unknown and incurable, had begun to tell on this brilliant boy, and it was then, when my brother was 25 that they had me. Not had me, but took me, rescued me, given me a home. For I am a mole, I am not their child, but I am special, and have always been made to feel so. My father told me I had been chosen, and would tickle me to make me laugh, send sparks through the air, placing my hand on his, as if I were in control of his wand. As well as a broom had a car, which was unusual for a wizard, and would sit me on his lap as he went, my hands on the wheel like I was in charge. Both acts would have my mother insisting loudly for him to stop. But he, behind his droopy moustache, would begin a low chuckle which I would join in with, and then, as if reluctantly, but we all knew better, Mum's tinkling laugh would join the symphony. It was several years before Mum decided that Dad could take me aloft, and while it was exciting, seeing the world from up high, like a living map, I found Dad's car far more appealing. These were among my earliest memories. That and chicken roast dinners, chunks of ham and cheese as a small salad that I was allowed to eat on a small step stool in the kitchen on rare occasions, and the most succulent, moist, sweet and sharp apple pie in the world. Just thinking about it now takes me back to those days long ago, to my father using his wand to receive mole radio signals, the light program, the cricket dash, to train sets, I rejected dolls, at Christmas and the biggest tree in the world that looked, in our living room, as if it went up forever. It was a pity life could not always have been like that. At moments of quiet, on cold, wintry days by the fire or spread out on an old sheet on balmy summer ones, as I was drawing, painting, sketching, my parents repairing the house, garden, cooking, or tinkering, their activity would drift to a halt, inertia overtaking frenzied action. I learned over time that both acts, the mania listing to a dull torpor, were when my mother, a medium-built witch with rounded curves, graying, curled hair always covered with a patterned headscarf, and my father, tall and big with a white-grey beard to his knees, were thinking about my poor, dear brother. When I was old enough, we occasionally went to see him. At first, I didn't know what was wrong with him. He would just stare, and wriggle in his seat as if he had sat on a nest of ants. Sometimes, he would look at Mum and Dad as if he knew them, other days we would be barred from going in, because he was having a bad day. Sizzling and cracking would accompany the imperative instruction to leave, and the witches who cared for him would wear sour faces. Not unlike my own if I had been badly behaved and Dad refused to magic my toys tidy, instead making me do it myself. If we weren't in the garden, in which my father's second home, the potting shed, and his third, the vegetable patch lay, my parents were repairing and improving our home. Our house, a little on the large side, a little on the ramming side, lay in a village alongside mole houses. To them, our house just looked like a rundown ruin, my parents told me, and that the children, and even some adults thought that there were witches living there. There were witches living here, I would often say, and a wizard too, and Mum would smile and Dad would chuckle, and, when I went to the local infant school, I would gleefully tell my friends that I knew the witch and wizard, and Darkling, their long, sleek black cat, with a kink at the end of her tail. My friends would listen agog, or laugh and run away, when I told them about my living with the witch and wizard, dinners there and playing in the garden, until the headmistress of the school told me off so ferociously about making up stories and telling untruths, and that I should never do it again, that I cried for a day and a night, barely stopping. Dad wanted me to be taken out of the school, but Mum insisted that I get used to people of my own kind, and it must have been about then, aged 6, that I was vaguely aware I wasn't like them, and I couldn't do magic. My pictures were not animate, no matter how hard I tried with them, and this distinction grew and became more fully defined as the years went by. Mum and Dad would often take me to visit their friends. I would take my drawing pad to pass the time, for what the grown-ups had to talk about rarely interested me. Cakes there were, buns, sympathetic head-patting, words expressing how normal and well turned out I was, considering the circumstances, and how they'd never have guessed. And, on occasions, the word mull, as if it was a secret word that daren't be spoken loudly. But more often than not, sympathy was shown for Mum and Dad, over my brother, asking how he was and how they themselves were, that they were not getting younger, and how brave they had been to take on a child like me at their age. "It must be so much work for you," one elderly witch confided in my mother, to which mother replied, "Less trouble than natural magic in the hands of a 7-year-old. Her spelling is excellent and does not accidentally turn people into toads and snails." Looking back, that was my mother's way of defending my lack of wizardry. Few people knew I was a mull orphan. At the time I was just pleased she was happy with my schoolwork. One friend I liked for us to visit had a daughter of an age similar to my own. It was from her that I realized I couldn't do what she could do, something which got more pronounced as she got more and more excited about going to a wizarding school like her cousins. "You'll go too," the girl said excitedly, and indeed, this was the first major step in my life, which my parents prepared for, and one which never happened. It was more a shock for them, I think, than me, and they consoled themselves with the fact that my brother had attended, and been a model student, with no sign of his mental and physical deformity. This then prompted Dad and Mum to have the talk with me, when they had used as many contacts as they could bend to secure me a place at the local comprehensive. I was 11 when they told me that there'd been a head-on collision right outside their house between my parents' car and another. The driver of that one was killed and so were my parents, but, my dad explained, taking my mum's hand, delicately, there I had been, just a baby, alive and well. Mum had taken one look at me and then was carrying me out of the wreckage, just before it evolved into a fireball, an invisibility spell disguising her from the chaos of fire engines, ambulances and screaming, panicking people. I accepted the news solemnly and without question at the time. It was only later that this unusual set of circumstances caused in me a streak of delinquency as I sought independence by claiming a sort of mull heritage through my teenage friends, making a point of asking for pocket money in pounds rather than sickles, buying typical mull fashions rather than robes, a cassette player and fantasizing over sports cars. I rebelled by trying to be a mull to the max. At that time my parents' age was telling and my behavior was exhausting them. My head teacher took me in hand and set me on the right path, chiding my reference to my mother as old witch, something I thought was hilarious and novel, but was, in fact, naive and dangerous. And, too, it was uncalled for. I look back now at my young life and consider how sheltered I had been, away from both wizard and mull horrors. Mum, too, had also taught me to cook and sew. Dad had taught me to keep a budget, and to drive his pride and joy of a car, though they themselves would use magic. They must have learned these skills the mull way in order to teach me. For, when I had learned to be better, Dad went on to explain that, at the time of the accident, me, with my name, whatever it had once been, was recorded as dead, along with my real parents. I did not officially exist. But I did exist as their daughter, and they were proud of my school achievements as much, if not more so than if I had gone to Hogwarts. I made an effort not to fall back into delinquency despite friends encouraging me to hang out, and I ended a budding relationship with a boy with beautiful eyes who loved cars as much as I did and with whom I had become a little too serious. It had been a chance meeting with my old friends. We went to Cornwall and Dumbledore came to find me. My parents had been placed under house arrest. To avoid befuddlement he proposed I accepted the job as assistant to the moral studies teacher. My wages would go towards my brother's care and I could keep in contact with my parents as long as the ministry allowed. That was the beginning of my time at Hogwarts, not as a student but as a 19-year-old teaching assistant. It is where I first met Harry Potter, in his first year, the boy who lived against the best efforts of the wizards my parents had known as Tom.